Stop cycling. So once that happened, then she knew she was pregnant. Now this description that you get in a King James or New King James Bible, when someone sees despised, it's kind of reversing what's going on there. She became filled with pride, right? She got beside herself, and then she looked over at Sarai and basically said, I'm giving him what you couldn't. Yes.
How do you know that?
Oh, that's absolutely what's going on.
It's in the sanctified imagination.
Absolutely. See, that's what I said. When you read it from a King James or New King James, the way this reads, it looks, think about it says, we'll read it again. So it went into Hagar and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, this is Hagar, her mistress would be Sarai. Her mistress became despised in her eyes. She despised Sarai. Now, what that means is the one that she was honoring because she was the servant, she's now looking at saying, I've moved up the chain and I'm about to have the kid. Oh, don't let it be a boy. Firstborn boy. In this culture, yes, I'm the bad girl. I'm the head wife in charge now. That's what that is. She's filled with pride. She's looking down upon her. So when you get to verse 5, something interesting, some very interesting things are said. Then Sarai said to Abram, my wrong be upon you. What does that mean?
You made
This is your fault.
y'all mean no.
Why is this his fault?
Because he went ahead and slept with her and got her pregnant.
Did she tell him to?
Yes, she did.
Oh,
Wasn't she obeying? Wasn't he obeying her?
But he was.
Then it's what?
He was the head of the household.
There you go. See, I've taught y'all well. As the head of the household, even though she said do it, he did not have to do it. He can't turn around and say, I only did it because you said so. No, this is on you. Right? Now, understand, what's her problem though?
She just mad because she.
Well, the
Don't-
woman is
don't-
pregnant. She
Yes,
waited
well, but wait. Her intentions were for her to get pregnant.
Right.
So her pregnancy's not the problem. What's her problem?
The
way
sign
she treated
she's
him.
haughty. Well, the
Hagar's
thing is,
attitude.
she's haughty and God didn't keep his promise. She felt.
There's a bunch of stuff here.
She's questioning.
There's a whole bunch of stuff here. The first thing is, I sent you in here to get her pregnant so that I could have a child by her. She's now looking down on me.
When Sarah owns it, that's her property. So
Yes.
she's not real happy about her property looking at her that way.
Did y'all catch what she said?
But she didn't.
This is Sarai's property. How did she come by this property, by the
She's a
way?
slave, she bought it.
How did she get her?
When they went down to Egypt.
Went down to Egypt, and on the way out, you know what it said? Gave them male donkeys and female donkeys and male servants and female servants.
But when Sarai gave Hagar as the wife, she's no longer a slave, isn't she?
Oh, yeah, she's still owns it.
She's still supposed to be her handmaid. The thing is this, what she thought was going to happen was that she was going to be like, oh yes, I'm pregnant with y'all's baby. But what she's basically doing here is like, I'm pregnant with his and my baby. I don't know why you're in the conversation now. You sitting over there, you can't even have kids. Get out the way. Right? The other part of this too, and by the way, when you go into any book in the Bible, one of the things you have to consider is the people that are being written to or the people that are being written about. What are their customs? And at this particular time, when a woman was barren, she was looked down upon. She was looked at as a failure, and she felt that way. She felt that way. Pretty much all Sarah had going for her up to this point was Abram loved her, and she was beautiful. That's it. She didn't have anything else. Most women were judged on the number of kids they provided, especially male children. So you know, she put herself in a pickle, but she turns around and she blames Abram, and she's in, do y'all think she's in pain? Yeah.
Emotional?
Turn to Proverbs 13 and find verse 12.
Oh, Proverbs what?
13 and 12. All right. Everybody there?
Amen.
Hope deferred makes the heart sick. Y'all see that? Hope deferred. When you have hope and it gets deferred, what does it mean? You gotta wait. What was her hope? God said you're going to have a child. We're going to see here in a little bit. They've been here 10 years. Hope has been deferred, and it makes the heart sick. But when the desire comes, it is a tree of life. What this is saying is that when you have hope and it gets to seem to be put on hold or you have to wait for it, it makes your heart sick. She's in pain. Her heart is sick. Now, for a moment, let's step back, as we like to do, or at least I like to do. Whenever I read this word, when I see the word heart in this way, I have to break it down so that I understand what this means. Her intellect, her emotion, and her will. So what's going on here, intellectually, she's bought into what God has said, and emotionally, she attached herself to it, so her will was to be obedient. But since there's been a 10-year delay, her heart is sick now. So intellectually, she's figured out another way, because emotionally, she's hurting. So her desire was, we'll have this baby this other way, and now what I have before me is a woman who's looking down on me because she's pregnant and I can't have kids and she's in my house. That's painful. That's painful because you put her in this position, and now you're looking at your husband who went along with the program, didn't stand up, didn't check off the box of spiritual leader, head of the household. We're going to obey God, do what God said. He said this was going to come from us. It's going to come from us. Abram didn't do that. Do you think she had been praying about it?
Yeah.
Like that. Think about that. You ever pray and pray and pray and pray and pray and
20 to 60,
pray
probably 60 years of praying.
and pray, and I'm still praying? Wait, and then God speaks, because surely she was praying for a child, at least up to the point that she became menopausal. Then it was, well, I guess it's not going to happen. Then God gives her this glimmer of hope. All right, God, you said I'm going to have a kid. Let's get on with it. No, let's let 10 years go by. Right? She's in pain. You think this might be going through her head? Just my luck, this is going to be a male child?
Sure.
Yeah.
Just my luck, while she's looking down at me, she'll have this child in her arms, and Abram will be walking around with his chest out and talking about his son. And I'll be somewhere sitting over in the corner,
Looking
forgotten.
beautiful.
How many people are in their household? Anybody have a guesstimate? Remember, he took 300 something men with him. So how many people are in the household?
300 and something.
That's men.
5,000.
That's men plus the women plus their families.
At least 1,000.
Yeah, it could be a couple of thousand.
Yeah.
It really could be. So, yeah, Abram's pretty rich. Is there some public shame here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's her most personal servant, if it's her handmaiden. So
Mhm.
how the handmaiden treats the woman, everybody else is doing. So all the other servants, I mean, the guy up in the body from under the bed's gonna be like, because nobody's gonna be nice to her now because they're all mocking her.
Yeah, it's gotta be shameful publicly. I mean, you walking around, you're in charge, and they're looking sideways at you now. So,
You did it to yourself.
what, I wouldn't be surprised, now, I don't know, I can't say for sure. We'll see as we go through this if we can glean any more. This is conjecture. So let me have that. for a second. A lot of people, when they get into these types of situations, they get mad at God. They get mad at God. Especially if they believe, God, you said. Now look at me. Look where I am. I'm upset. You know, that's what happens when you get in pain. When your heart gets sick, when you had hope, you start questioning God. You start questioning why. What are the reasons? What did I do? Anybody ever said that to God? What did I do? What did I do, Lord? What do you think God says?
Didn't wait.
Okay, I like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Did y'all hear what she said?
No.
She said nothing. Now, you know why she said nothing? Because everything you get from God is by grace. What did I do, Lord? You ain't do nothing. I like yours. Didn't wait. If I said it,
So.
it's so. Now, I'm not going to tell you when. I'm not going to tell you how. All right? But all of this carries pain. And that is a sickness. It is a heart sickness. When you have hope and it's not coming in what you would consider to be a timely manner, you get sick at the heart. And when you get sick at the heart, you get like she is. This is your fault. Then she says, I gave my maid into your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, I became despised in her eyes. The Lord judged between you and me. What does that mean? The Lord judged between you and me. Yeah, let the Lord judge it. This is between you and me. Who's at fault? May the Lord watch between you and me while we're absent from one another. Y'all ever heard that?
Oh, yeah.
Do y'all know what that means? No. May the Lord watch between you and me while we're absent. In other words, may the Lord watch to see which one of us messes up while we're apart. That's what that means. Me and Trin pray that when I drop her off to school. And I explain that to her. I'm saying this, what we're saying is we want God to look at both of us. So while we're apart from one another, which one of us is going to mess up? So be careful praying that prayer, especially if you don't know what it means. All right? And what she's basically saying, she's saying something similar in that, let the Lord judge between you and me. Which one of us is right? Which one of us is wrong? Now, I think God's answer would be, both of y'all are wrong. However, I'm putting the responsibility on whom? Abram. Right? I'm putting the responsibility on Abram because I put him in the position of being this spiritual leader who should have told you when you came to him, what did God say? So we're going to do what God said.
Right.
Right? Verse 6. So Abram said to Sarai, indeed, your maid is in your hand. What did he just do?
Put it back on her.
This is not right.
He has sidestepped his responsibility in the first place, and then in the second place, he sidestepped it again. What should he have done?
Took accountability.
Stoned
Stop.
Should have got it out.
Man, it said stoner.
I
Kill
said,
her.
hey, I said that a while ago too.
Y'all some cruel men.
We talking. We gotta put it in context. The time.
But she's
I
still,
know.
she's still pregnant.
Okay, so
I should have done better.
let's okay, well that's to reconcile with Sarah. I should have done better. But let's think about the situation. Why is she upset? It ain't because she's pregnant. Because she's being rude. So the head of the house
Should have got her.
should have
check.
put her in her place and checked and say, oh, wait a minute. No. What you were doing for her.
Right.
You're going to respect her or you're going to get out.
But Abraham must have been showing her some love and like and eyes.
I think, well, I would look at it and say, I think Abram is a little
Weak.
henpecked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what she's going to do to Hagar, all Abram's going to do is run away and cry about it.
Oh, punk.
I mean, literally. Indeed, your maid is in your hand. Do to her as you please. And when Sarah dealt harshly with her, she fled from her presence. Now, this wording, dealt harshly with her, means that she punished her. She didn't put her out. She punished her. But now remember, Hagar's been walking around, I'm somebody. And you're nobody. Well, nobody came back with the head of the household's authority and laid the smack down on her. And then in her pride, not realizing her place, she runs away. Can you blame her? Is she wrong here?
Yes. From Hagar?
Is Hagar wrong?
Yeah.
Okay, explain. I'm not saying she is or isn't. I'm just
Slaves obey your masters.
slaves obey your masters. Well, she did.
Well, I mean,
But she
ran away, she
didn't
wasn't run away.
She didn't believe in
She
God.
still had a role to
She had
play, and
faith
she
in
took
God.
her role out of conflict.
She said her own voice.
Yeah, and I was gonna say she's Egyptian, but in her Egyptian culture, she knows that what she was being asked was not abnormal.
No, it's normal.
It was normal. But this whole concept of her suddenly looking back at Sarai and despising her, this is where she was wrong.
That's where she said,
She stepped out of her place, right? So she messed up. She's messed up. All right, so verse 7. Now, this is the first time we're going to get this in Scripture, so we're going to spend a quick minute on it. Now, y'all see angel of the Lord. And you notice that angel of the Lord, that the A in angel is
Lord.
capitalized, right? It's
Nice,
capitalized.
nice.
It should be.
It should be.
It should be.
yeah.
It should be. Now, here's the reason why. Let's read this real quick and then you'll see why. Now the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to Shur. And he said to her, now, it says he found her. Are we talking about an individual with a physical presence?
Her or him?
Him.
The angel?
Yes, at this time, the angel had a physical.
Yeah, this is the first time you're going to see angel of the Lord.
So that
We'll
was
see
Jesus.
angel of the Lord again when Abram goes up to kill his son. The angel of the Lord will show up there.
So
The
that
angel-
Jesus,
Huh?
that Jesus.
Well, you want to jump to the head of the class,
Oh.
don't you? No, that's good. You're right. All right, so when you see this phrase, angel of the Lord, in the Old Testament, let me tell you who we're talking about. The word, does anybody know what the word angel means? It means messenger. That's what angel means. All right. It means messenger. And anytime you see a word that's got that ending L, it's a reference to God. All right. It's messenger of God. Okay. But here's the thing. This is the angel of the Lord. Your translators try to do this with when anytime you see angel of the Lord, it will say the, not a, or an, not an angel of the Lord. The angel of the Lord. The angel of the Lord says things that are quite interesting. So keep that in mind. Let's look at what he says, and then we're going to come back and talk about who he is. All right. And he said to her, Hagar, Sarah's maid, where have you come from, and where are you going? All right. Where have you come from, and where are you going? Where's she come from?
Sarai being punished.
She came out of Egypt as a slave.
Well, she came out of Egypt as a slave. She's been going along with Sarai and them. And then you said, from Sarai being punished. She's coming out of a troubled situation, isn't she? Why is she, where's she coming from? This is a question that I think sometimes we need to ask ourselves. Where am I coming from and where am I going? Especially when I'm upset. Because she's upset. She's leaving what upset her. But where in the world is she going?
She don't know.
She don't know.
She's headed back to Egypt.
No, she ain't got no, she's a long way from Egypt. She ain't able to walk back. Where does she go to? Where do you see her at? Yeah, but she said someplace specific here. Look what it says.
Oh, it's spring, by the way.
Spring. On the way to Shur. Why spring?
She was thirsty.
Yeah, she needs water. She think about it. She done left without
Food, clothes, shelter.
Nothing. She just run out, upset. She just out there upset, trying to get a drink of water.
Yeah, pregnant.
Where you coming from? Where you think you going? You know what her answer is? I'm leaving a troubled place for me. Might be good for other people, but for me, I don't want to be there. I don't want to put up with it. This is her pride talking. We're going to see this in a minute. I don't want to put up with it. So I am going someplace else. Where are you going? I really don't know, but I'm going somewhere. She said, I am fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarai. That's what I'm leaving. And the angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hand. Uh-oh. Return. To who?
Sarah.
But notice how he put it.
Your mistress.
Your mistress. She in charge of you. Return to your mistress and do what?
Submit.
And submit. Well, you know what your problem was? You stopped submitting. When you got pregnant, you thought she was something, you stopped submitting. That's your problem. Your problem is not that she's mean. Your problem is not that it's a troubled situation. Your problem is you and not your submitting. That's why I say it's a question we should ask ourselves sometimes when we get upset about something. Where did I come from? I came out of the situation. What is the situation? Well, for her, it was a terrible situation where I got punished by Sarah. Well, the angel of the Lord comes along and says, no, that's not what you're running from. You're running from a situation where you should have been in submission, where you should have understood that was your mistress, and you messed that up. Right? This is not, you know how we say, people will say this a lot. Well, wasn't my fault. Really? Is it not? Do you bear some responsibility? Now, some things are not your fault, but we don't think anything's our fault most of the time. When we get so angry or so upset that we run from a situation, in a lot of cases, what we're running from has more to do with what we've done than it does the situation itself, because we've created it. And so what he's telling her is, you go back, submit yourself under her hand. Now, I know her question here ought to be, why?
I'm pretty sure.
Now, verse 9 will tell you who this is. I'm sorry, verse 10 will. Then the angel of the Lord said to her, I will multiply your descendants exceedingly. Who in the world can say that? God, and only God. So the angel of the Lord is God. Anytime you see, now, y'all have heard this before, and y'all understand this. God is invisible, and no one has seen him at any time. Y'all have heard that? Right? So, whenever we see any manifestation of God, whether it be auditory, whether it is physical, a burning bush, God walking through the garden in the afternoon of the day and all that kind of stuff in the cool of the day, this is the second person of the Trinity. This is Jesus. This is the Son. This is before the incarnation. This is the pre-incarnated Christ. In the Old Testament, he shows up in a burning bush. He shows up walking through the cool of the garden. He shows up as the angel of the Lord. All right? So this is how God manifests himself. She would not hear from God unless God physically had manifested himself to her. Safe to say, when Abram heard from God, it was Jesus. All right? It's the second person of the Trinity. That is what Jesus says. Jesus says, I come to declare him. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. The importance of Jesus cannot be, you can't overstate it.
So when he came, did he come looking like he looked when he came, when he grew up? So they would know that was who they had been speaking with?
How would any of these people, none of them would have been alive, first of all. Secondly, he's coming in the form of an angel. So what do angels look like?
But he always came, he didn't always come in,
That's what I'm saying.
he didn't always come in the form of an angel though, did he?
No, in the Old Testament he does several times. But you know, when someone, I like it, what does an angel look like? Whatever God wants them to look like, because the term means messenger. Whatever is going to best fit the message that is about to be given. I'm assuming if she's upset, perhaps he's a pleasant looking person. I don't know. Maybe he did come with wings all over him. It doesn't say. I don't know. But something she's going to figure out about it. I mean,
It must have been enough for her to believe it.
exactly. God gave her what she needed to hear what she needed to hear so she could believe. Now, when he says this, I will multiply your descendants exceedingly so that they shall not be counted for multitude. Do you know what he's saying? He's literally, think about what Abram was told. I'm going to multiply yours. They're going to be like the sand of the sea, the stars of the sky. But now here, he's telling Hagar, guess what I'm going to do with your seed?
I'm multiplying.
I'm going to multiply it. So much so, no way to count it. And the angel of the Lord said to her, behold, you are with child, and you shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction. What do you think Ishmael means? Huh?
Well, that, I don't know. Well, that.
He said, what?
No.
God
What did he say?
No.
God hears?
Why did you say that?
Because the court said it.
Why did the court say it?
I just read this.
Okay,
You
sorry.
got you got the power.
You saw it in your study Bible. I want to show y'all something about names in the Bible. Look at this. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction. God hears. You're going to call him God hears because the Lord has heard your affliction. It's right there. It kind of tells you. By the way, this is the first person in the Bible that was named before they were born. It's the first one. God names Ishmael before he was born. And notice what this angel of the Lord said. Because the Lord has heard your affliction. Saying, I heard you. He shall be a wild man. Okay. When you think of wild, what does that usually mean?
Untamed.
Untamed? Running around?
Well, if you go into some of the other versions, it talks about him being like a wild donkey or a wild ass.
Mhm.
That was a very frightening creature. They would attack their own. They were violent. You couldn't tame them. They were vile to be around. The meat wasn't even any good. They were awful.
Okay, so
They were nasty little animals.
some of the things that she said, talking about this donkey. When a donkey is wild, because the Hebrew word here for wild man, they're being nice in the translation, it is wild ass as a donkey. Donkey is an ass. All right? So, when you get a donkey that is wild, they are terrible. They attack their own.
Even on babies.
Yes.
They're terrible.
They're terrible. Here's the thing. When you think of Arabs and the history of Arabs, I know a lot of it we go immediately over to the Muslim thing. But prior to Muhammad, if you go all the way back, now Muslims like to fight. Most people think they fight everybody else. They kill each other more than they kill anybody else. Wild man, the donkey that goes out and eats it, they kill each other all the time. Turkey just went across over into where? Syria, to get the, watch this, to get their brothers and kill them.
Yeah.
They're the same people.
Yeah.
They just went out and killed their own people.
Well, the Israelis, they took their machines into the battlefield, and they would help a fighter fight the other ones, and the guy would go, they'd catch him up and they'd send him back out to fight the other. And so, they're helping this guy, but he was going out to kill those other guys. So he was like, let him go. The guy goes,
If you don't believe it, just call an Iranian Iraqi or an Iraqi Assyrian. They come up hard. There's a huge prejudice amongst that people group. They hate each other's guts.
Yeah,
It's
that's,
crazy.
and the thing is, they're the same
It's
people.
the same group, yeah.
It's the same group.
Yeah.
We grew up with Chaldeans and Arabs.
do you think is that?
They are so, like Chaldeans are Christians, Arabs are Muslims. And you just not even think about one
Yeah.
Can't tell them apart.
And that's the thing, they're the same, again, he was gonna be a wild man and he was gonna have a bunch of him, multitude. So when you look at the Middle East, first of all, they don't get along with each other, and then, here's the funny thing. Who's Ishmael's father?
Abraham.
Abraham.
And then the sons.
Who's Isaac's father?
Abraham.
So Ishmael and Isaac are half brothers, which means Israelis and Arabs are related. First of all, they hate each other, and then within the Arabs, they hate themselves. And you wonder why there's no peace in the Middle East.
Because of Ishmael.
Because of Sarah and Abraham.
Because of Sarai
No, it ain't Ishmael.
and Abram doing what they did, mostly because of Abram. Because Sarai was quick to point out, this is your fault. And I'm sure he had no idea that what he was doing would end up like this. I mean, in fact, if somebody would have sat down and told him, he probably would have said, no way. No way, people don't act like that. They don't act like that. So, he shall be a wild man. His hand shall be against every man. He ain't gonna get along with nobody. And every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. All those that he's related to, he will dwell in their presence, but he will have issues. So, directly for her son was going to have issues, but for his descendants, that same thing goes on today. Then she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. I like this. You are the God who sees. What did Miss Hagar just do?
Believed.
She just believed. Think about where she comes from. Right? So if you go back and you study ancient Kemet and come up to when it became Egypt, what you know about it, by the time she shows up, they got a God for everything. You know, Pharaoh's God, his children are gods, the statues are gods, they got frogs that are gods, they got gods for the water, they got gods for the crops, they got gods for reproduction, they got a God for everything. And here she says, you are the God who sees. Do you know what she's saying about the other gods?
They don't say nothing.
Hey, you're real. That's a bunch of fake stuff back there that I came from. Yeah, she has, this is what you call someone who's been converted. She says, have I also here seen him who sees me? First time in her life, she's probably been bound down to gods all her life. This is the first time she goes, oh, I done run into one that actually sees me. He sees me. You are the God who sees. Therefore, the well was called Bir Lahoroi. Now, what do you think that means?
Bears mature.
Excuse me? What do you think? You don't, what did he tell y'all about names?
Bears mature.
The Lord who spoke to her, look, she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her, you are the God who sees. Therefore, the well was called Bir Lahoroi. The God who sees. Yeah, the God who sees. It is between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram named his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. Now,
Did she tell him or?
okay, that's what I was going to say. Do you think she came back and she had to submit, right? She came back different? What do you think she told them when she got back, Abram and Sarah? I met God. By the well. And he told me I was going to have a son. By the way, when she goes back, she's probably showing, but I mean, they didn't have any sonograms, so she don't know what she's going to have. But he said, I'm going to have a son. He's going to be wild. He's going to have a bunch of descendants. And you're supposed to name him Ishmael. But you know what she's not telling us? His descendants are going to be the ones that go into your promised land. She's not telling him that because that's not what she was told. right? She came back and said, look, I'm gonna have a son, this is what you're gonna name him, and this is what God told me. So at this point, Abram's probably sitting there going, oh, you met God. And she's submitting now to Sarai. What do you think this does for Sarai's faith?
Stronger.
It should, right? It should. But has she laughed yet? She ain't laughed yet.
But Abram didn't need to know that, because he knew all his descendants were gonna, God had already promised him that.
Well, but Abram might have made the mistake of thinking this was the descendant.
Yeah, he was right, this is one.
He might have made that mistake, but when she comes back and says what she says, oh, it's gonna be a whole bunch of them. It's gonna be wild, all over the place. What, did he say anything about the land? No, no land. No, yes ma'am.
Not that we can know this, but do you have any thought of why God would have made Ishmael? Because he could have said he'll be a sweet man and everyone will be nice to him and they could have sung Kumbaya. Like, why do you think he made it this way?
Okay, so
Because they didn't follow his.
she's asking basically is like the whole question when someone says, well, why did God make the devil?
Right.
Right? All right, so
Yeah.
you ready?
And your sanctified imagination.
No, this is more of my scholarly hat here.
It's in the Greek.
It's not in the Greek. Okay, so the Middle East. If the Middle East were not the Middle East, what would this world be like?
Peace.
Be peaceful. It actually would be rather peaceful. Why does the Middle East create so many issues for the world? Now, it hasn't always created a lot of issues for the world. It was all to itself. But something in the last 100 years. Oil. The oil. What did that do to the rest of the world?
Dependence.
Chaos. Right? Right? Chaos. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? Everybody's aligned with somebody in the Middle East. Right? Everybody wants to be aligned with somebody because everybody wants some of that oil. So when you go and you understand, when you get to Revelation, you got to ask the question, why in the world would anybody want the Antichrist? Because the Antichrist is going to come on and give the world what it wants, world peace. In order to want world peace, you have to have a world that's in chaos. So what happened with Abram and Sarai and Hagar is God used this event, in my humble scholarly estimation, to set the world up for the Antichrist to come and fix. Because I believe Revelation is clear that the Antichrist will come out of the Middle East, because the Antichrist is going to be the one that gets peace in the Middle East. That's the first thing that's going to happen, and then world dominance. When we go through Revelation, that's what we find out. If there's no problems in the Middle East, there's no need for the Antichrist. So, just to say this, when you see something that just seems crazy, like why would God do that? Or why did God make the devil? Or why did God allow this thing to happen? I will almost guarantee you that within Scripture you will find that even the stuff that seemed messed up served a purpose. The Apostle Paul put it this way in the book of Romans: all things work together for good of them that love the Lord. All things, not all good things, all things. Don't work together for you, work together for the good, right? May not feel good, may not look good, may not sing good, but in the end, it's working for the good. That make sense? All right, so that's my scholarly answer to the whole issue of what was going on in the Middle East. So, verse 16, and so let's get this right, because I've been saying Abram was like 100 years old. Not yet. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. All right, so he was 86 when this happened. All right, when Abram was 99 years old, chapter 17, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am Almighty God. Walk before me and be blameless. Hold on, back up a second. he was 86 when Ishmael was born. Here he is at 99, and guess what hadn't happened?
No children from Sarah.
No, nothing for Sarah. So she's still waiting. So you said a minute ago, this should have strengthened her faith. See,
Probably for a second.
about this point, because 86 to 99, if my math is correct, that's like 13 years. 13 more years of nothing.
And watch
She got a sick
Ishmael
heart.
being bad.
She got a sick heart. Oh, and Wild Man is running around.
He was always bad.
Remember,
You know them kids.
she came back. So who's running around 13 years old?
Ishmael.
Ishmael.
Calling wrong.
What's he calling her? Probably mistress or whatever, you know.
It's probably about her first name.
That's mama. That's the mistress.
What up, Sarah?
So the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am Almighty God. Walk before me and be blameless. What does walk before me mean?
With him? Ahead of him?
Remember what I told y'all when you see the words walk like this? What does walk mean? How you live your life. If you're going to live it before me, how would you live your life before God?
Perfect. And
Yeah, that's what he says. And be what?
Blameless.
Blameless. Right? Walk before me and be blameless, and I will make my covenant between me and you and will multiply you exceedingly. Then Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be a father of many nations. Ain't this like the third or fourth time that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so it's been years
he
this been
keeps
going
telling
on.
him. He just,
still having this conversation.
because
Huh?
he ain't believing. They ain't waiting
Remember
on him.
what because I told y'all last time. One thing Abram doesn't have, he doesn't have a book to go back to and go back over this to get some comfort. So after 13 years of watching this other one run around,
He
what do you do?
Lord, help me.
all right, so verse 5. No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. What do you think Abraham means?
Father of many.
Father of many nations. There you go. All right, we're close enough. All right, verse 6. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings shall come from you. He's 99 years old. He got a 13-year-old. A 13-year-old that is not a part of this covenant.
Does he know that at this point?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he knows.
Yeah, he knows.
She told him.
He knows. He knows. He knows that his 13-year-old. This is why. Think about it from this perspective. This is why God is coming back saying to him, "I'm gonna do this." He's not saying to him, "I've done it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this."
And you know what, that was another thing when you think back, when he tried to make it easier, he's like, no, I will inherit, let Eliezer inherit my possessions. The servant that was in his household, he was like, no, the child's gonna come between you and Sarah. And for him to go out and sleep with Hagar when God had already told him, it's gonna come from you and your wife. It is your fault, dude.
Yeah, no, it's his fault.
You know what I mean?
It's his
Like,
fault.
dude, I told you. You didn't believe it. I told you.
This is the beautiful thing about God. Remember the covenant?
Mm-hmm.
Remember when they went through that covenant thing and they got all the animals, right? And they split them. And remember, Abram fell asleep. But when he woke up, he sees the fire and the smoke and the oven thing go down between the animals, but he doesn't. Which means it was a one-way thing. So even though he messed up, you know what God has basically said there? When God said, it's not it's a covenant between me and you, but I am the one that carries it out. You, it's one way. It's unconditional. The only one that can break this covenant is me.
So I guess I've been reading this wrong the whole time, because when it said, I'll make you the father of many nations, I was considering the Muslim people one of the nations.
No, you're going to find out a little bit later on when he gets ready to kill Isaac. When he gets ready to kill Isaac, before he goes up into the mountain, we're going to see God tell him, take your son, your only son. So God does not consider Ishmael his son. Does not consider Ishmael Abraham's son. Even though he is, he doesn't consider him that way. Yes.
So I think it's telling also that his name was Abram when Ishmael was conceived, and Abraham.
Ham. That's
when
another
Christ
thing,
was
yeah.
conceived.
That's beautiful.
He
Jerry,
promises he's gonna be, many nations, there's gonna be kings coming from you, and he just told Hagar, there's gonna be a bunch of them, they're gonna be crazy. He didn't give them any standing in the world. You're not gonna have kings, you're not gonna be, all this, everything. It was all promised for Isaac, all of it.
So if you did y'all catch what she said, that first part? When he's Abram, he has Ishmael. He didn't have Isaac until he's Abraham. A change of name is actually a change of identity.
Wait, say that again?
A change of name,
No, what she
Oh.
said at the beginning.
when he has Ishmael, his name is Abram. When God changes his name to Abraham, that's a change of identity.
Oh.
So Abram had Ishmael, but Abraham has Isaac. So when he goes to sacrifice Isaac, when he says, your son, your only son, what he's basically telling him is, you ain't Abram no more, you're Abraham. Abram's
God
gone.
be mean.
And that's your
I'm
only son,
kind of-
Abraham.
Yeah.
Abram's
It's
gone.
not like Ishmael's fault.
No.
No, Ishmael.
And he didn't curse him, he just,
But yeah, think about the deal with Ishmael though. He blessed Ishmael. No, he blessed Ishmael.
To be a wild person killing their.
Yeah, but he blessed Ishmael. Ishmael is going to be many nations. Ishmael is going to be okay.
That's a fun
He
blessing.
basically told Hagar, your son's going to be all right. I got him.
Is
Yeah.
that what he, because I kept thinking I know she believed in him. I thought she was just happy because she believed, because I would have been like,
Here's the
hurt that my
thing.
child would be there.
If you understand the wild donkey, nobody messes with the wild donkey.
But still.
The wild donkey might go out and whoop everybody, but they don't like the wild donkey, but the donkey's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
The other donkeys, stay away from that donkey.
I feel.
You put a wild donkey amongst donkeys, what's the other ones do?
So he believed in God?
No.
No.
Then he ain't okay.
No,
No.
what I'm saying is, he was not going to be put out there to just die and be nothing. God still had it. That's all I'm
But
saying.
he's still gonna
God
live?
had it. And the message was not to Ishmael, it was to his mother. Who would have been worried about it?
His mother.
The mom would have been worried
What's gonna
about
happen
it.
when
But
they-
now,
Yeah.
is she
But
going,
is
is
Ishmael
she,
going to hell? Because he don't, but he,
The Muslims
Excuse me?
are, I guess.
so
Ishmael, okay, hold on, wait a minute, stop. Ishmael's not a Muslim.
That didn't happen for a minute.
Ishmael, the Muslims didn't show up till well after Jesus
Yeah,
was
but
gone.
Is Ishmael going to heaven or hell?
Did he believe in God or?
You tell me.
Never said.
His mother
That's the
did
we don't know anything else about Ishmael.
in this book, but I mean, in the other, he did believe in this guy. He was along.
And what others?
I'm saying this is a historic story, so I mean, we know what happened to Hagar. We know what the story.
No, there's no more mention of Ishmael.
Ishmael didn't show up until, Abraham died, and then Isaac came to
Yeah,
bury their father.
Ishmael showed, that's right. Ishmael shows back up to bury Abraham, and that's all him and Isaac bury Abraham, and that's it.
But Hagar, we know believed in God because she.
Yes.
So I would imagine she's going to be in heaven.
I'll give her that. Yeah, I think she got converted. I also think she probably told her son about God.
Yeah.
But
God didn't have.
God told her he's gonna be all right, but he's just gonna be wild. He's wild.
He ain't gonna be all right if he going to hell.
He's.
We don't know that.
Oh, okay.
I guess
Alright.
that's how she walked away now, because I was wondering that in the beginning. I just,
We don't know that. We don't know that. Now, we know that a lot of his descendants are Muslims, but a lot of his descendants are Christians. That's another mistake people make. If you see somebody from the Middle East, the first thing you think, Muslim. And you'll mess up. They're like, no, there's a lot of Christians there too.
Yes.
Right? So, you don't know.
I want to.
All right, so he gets his name changed. We're in chapter 17, verse 6. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make all nations of you, and kings shall come from you, and I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you in their generations for an everlasting covenant to be God to you and your descendants after you. Your descendants after you. All right? Also, I give to you and your descendants after you the land. This is the part that Now we can talk about Muhammad and the rest of the Middle East. This is the part I think they miss somehow. Because what he says here, and what is said here is, the land, all the land of Canaan as an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. Who is he going to give it to?
Jacob.
The descendants.
Oh, the descendants.
After you. After who? After Abram or Abraham?
Abraham.
Abraham. Abraham. That would be Isaac, Jacob, who became
The 12 sons.
Israel. All right. So, verse 9. And God said to Abraham, as for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male child among you shall be circumcised, and you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. All right, so who's getting circumcised? And his whole household. Oh, wait a minute. Who's in his household?
Ishmael.
Ishmael's in his household too. Just food for thought. Just thought I'd throw that out there. All right. By the way, remember this. Remember this. Because when we get to Joseph, remember this. This is important. All right? You shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin, and shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised. How many days was it when Jesus got circumcised?
8.
All right. Every male child of your generation, he who is born in your house or bought with money from any foreigner who is not your descendant, he who is born in your house and he who is bought with your money must be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. I'm going to guess Ishmael got circumcised. All right. Verse 14. And the uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. So everybody's going to get it. All right. Verse 15. Then God said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, because Sarai can't have children. But Sarah, because Sarah can, shall be her name. And I will bless her and also give you a son by her. By who?
Her.
Who is her?
Sarah.
Sarah. Not Sarah. Sarah. Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? Now,
I always wonder why you got on Sarah for laughing, but didn't get on Abraham for laughing.
I don't know. Well, let's look at the laugh for a second. What's he laughing at?
Well, you know, I guess
Maybe he had a nervous laugh.
Hers was more unbelief, and
Yeah.
his was more.
His laugh, I think his laugh is more of a wow.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that's something else. I'm 99, she's 9, we're gonna have a kid.
Yeah.
Right? Hers is more like, yeah, right.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah, hers is a little, I think hers is a little different.
sarcasm.
Yeah. Verse 18, you gotta get to Ishmael. And Abraham said to God, oh, that Ishmael might live before you. Wait, y'all were wondering. Who else is wondering? His daddy. What does live before you mean?
The same thing, walk before you like.
Be a believer, right? Then God said, no. Y'all see no?
Yeah.
You see a no. Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his descendants after him.
That's why I didn't think he knew at this point.
Wait. Who didn't know? Wait a minute.
I
Who didn't
didn't,
know?
when you said, when you were talking before and they were saying like, he knew that he wasn't the one, I thought this is when he found out that he
No, because look at what he said to him in verse 18. Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. That's like saying, I wish that Ishmael could get in on this. I wish that Ishmael could get on this. I wish that he might live before you.
That goes back to where God said, walk before me.
Walk before me.
He's saying, I wish that this boy would live
Would live
you,
before me.
would be in faith.
remember when Hagar comes back and tells him all of this, what's missing from her story has to be all of this. He's going to have a whole bunch of descendants. But ain't no promised land. Ain't no blessing through that. None of that. Nothing that's going to affect the nations. There's none of that. What we're told is wild, which the Arabs are. They are. So he says, no, Sarah your wife shall bear your son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with the descendants after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. I hear you. I hear your prayer. You looking at it like that's your boy. Okay. Behold. Whenever you see that word in the Bible, you should do this. Something about that. Behold, I have blessed him. Read that carefully. What does that say? I have. What does have mean? Past tense. I have blessed him and will make him fruitful and will multiply him exceedingly. He shall beget 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. Ooh, 12. 12. 12, yes, government. I'm gonna give him 12 princes. Well, what is Abraham, Isaac, Jacob? He gets how many? 12. Was it 12? Remember, you get the 12 in the Old Testament. When you get to Revelation, remember the 12? It changes. We just went through Revelation.
Yeah, we did. What are you talking
That was-
about? It's 12, it's 12.
He threw me off too.
it's 12 of the kids. Even with Benjamin.
But Joseph turns into
That's
Manasseh
and Ephraim.
Ephraim.
Oh,
Yeah, it's 12. But you're going to get different names over here.
I know.
All right. You got it?
Yeah, I got
That's my seminary student.
you.
Yes, question. All right, so he says, but my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you at this set time next year. Now God gives him the time period. You know what Abraham's saying? Man, if you just told me.
Right.
Years ago.
We wouldn't have been in all of this trouble. But she shall bear you a son this time next year.
Had he said his name before, or he just dropped it in?
What, Isaac?
Yeah.
No, this is the first time he told him the name too.
Yeah, he told the name just, are you talking
Just-
about just now? Yeah, this conversation is when he names Isaac. So Isaac is the second person to get named before he is born. All right? Verse 22. Then he finished talking with him, and God went up from Abraham. So Abraham took, oh, by the way, this again would be the second person of the Trinity. All right? So Abraham took Ishmael his son, all who were born in his house, and all who were bought with his money, and every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that very same day as God had said to him. So Ishmael gets circumcised. However, when God says my covenant will be made with Ishmael, what is he talking about specifically?
The 12 princes.
I'm sorry, not with Ishmael. I mean with Isaac.
He's talking about Jesus.
Yes, he's talking about the covenant that Jesus is going to come through. He's not going to come through Ishmael. The nations will not be blessed through Ishmael. They will be blessed through Isaac. Okay? This is where the whole Muslim thing gets convoluted, because the Muslims run back to Ishmael. The Muslims point to 12 princes. The Muslims say he's firstborn, that the blessing came to him, that Muhammad comes from Ishmael, so Muhammad is the Jesus, the Messiah, and not Jesus. There's your conflict. Now, on the flip side, what do they say about Isaac? Blessed. See, from a Muslim perspective, they don't actually have a problem at their core with Israel. They don't. They look at Israel as having great prophets, including Jesus as being one of the greatest prophets. That's what they say about Jesus. Muhammad is the greatest of the prophets. Jesus is one. In fact, they reverence Jesus better than Christians do, which is a shame.
Yeah.
They really do. A Muslim does not talk bad about Jesus. You'll never catch one say anything negative about Jesus. The only thing they will say is y'all should stop lying on the fact that he died and was resurrected. Other than that, Jesus is wonderful as far as they're concerned. They just don't believe. They go from Ishmael and they walk down through Muhammad. Because Muhammad knows I'm not a descendant. Over here, I'm a descendant from Ishmael. All right, so that's where that issue comes in. But we see God fixed all of this. All right, so that very same, verse 26, that very same day, Abraham was circumcised and his son Ishmael, and all the men of his house, born in the house and bought with money from a foreigner, were circumcised with him. All right, so we get the whole pattern of circumcision that starts. And I'm telling y'all, keep that in mind, that all Israelite men are going to be circumcised. Because when we get to Joseph, we're going to come back and it'll help you to understand something extremely important that happens with Joseph and his brothers. Yes, ma'am.
Fun science fact, he says in here specifically, every man who's 8 days old, among you at 8 days old, the blood is coagulated enough that a child can be circumcised without bleeding to death.
Yep.
Full story.
Medical fact.
Yep, science. It works.
All right, so is David? Are you?
I didn't see him. Yeah, they have one.
Okay, he's not here?
Y'all sure he coming?
Let's just go. Keep going. All right. Verse 1, chapter 18. Then the Lord appeared to him by the terebinth trees of Mamre as he was sitting in the tent during the heat of the day. So, the Lord appeared to him. Y'all see that?
Yes.
How does something appear?
Just because it's out of thin air.
Well, I mean, but how do you know it's appeared?
He just
You
showed
see it.
up.
You see it. You see it. All right. So, the Lord is appearing to him, which means if the Lord is appearing, anytime you have a physical appearance, that's the who?
She's the
Jesus.
second person of the Trinity.
Second person of the Trinity. So he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing. This always got me. The Lord appeared to him, and he looked up, and how many did he see?
3.
3. 3 men were standing by him, and when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the ground and said, what now, y'all really, this is why this always got me. I remember bringing this up in seminary at Tyndale, and my professor looking at me going, oh, you see that? So y'all didn't see this. So look again. Here we go. Verse 2. So he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing. Wait a minute. Verse 1 says, the Lord, singular, appeared to him. He opened his eyes and he sees what? 3. Now look at verse 3. And he said, my Lord. Why did he say my Lords?
Because they one.
But it's 3.
But he gets to see the Trinity.
All it was, and all we talked about in class was, what is going on here? How does Abraham, now he's Abraham, we can switch over. How does Abraham have the Lord appear to him, and then when he looks up, it's 3, he runs and bows, and what he says is, my Lord. My Lord, if I have now found favor in your sight, do not pass on by your servant. Please let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves. Wait a minute. Please let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree. But he's talking to my Lord.
I just feel like that if you're going to be special enough for God to reveal himself to you, he's going to give you a little bit of wisdom that's going to allow you to see a little bit of things that others just can't see. That's what I feel.
Well, as we said before, when angels were appearing, the angel of the Lord, and if you think about when Moses sees the burning bush, right? The question always comes up, why would God appear as a burning bush? Well, it's in the description that Moses sees. Who wrote that? Moses wrote it. What did Moses say? I saw a bush that was burning, but wasn't burning up, which was God's way of showing Moses, I exist without need of anything. The fire needs something to burn. The bush is on fire, but the bush isn't burning. I'm self-existent. That's what Moses saw. What Abraham sees here, I don't know. But all I do, but what I do know is he sees three, but he's referring to them as one. But when it came to wash your feet, he says yourselves.
Yeah.
All right, just interesting.
But also, isn't this just before they went to say Lot too? No. Were the two left angels?
Yeah, we're about to get to that.
Yeah,
We're about to get to that.
The two angels.
There's a
went
what
away. God didn't go
Trinity.
down there with
Well,
them.
it does, well, I don't know. I don't think it says that two of them left. It just says that there were two angels. So could be, I don't know. But I just remember going over this and just saying, why does it say three? And why is he saying Lord? Why ain't he greeting all of them? I'm just saying. And then Dr. Penny looked at me and said, my professor's name was Rusty Penny. Seriously, Dr. Rusty Penny. Rusty still there?
I don't know.
Oh, I was saying I think he's overseas now.
Oh,
But,
really?
so it says, and I will bring a morsel of bread that you may refresh your hearts. After that you may pass by, inasmuch as you have come to your servant. They said, do as you have said. Now here's the thing. He fell down before them. Anytime someone fell down before an angel, what did the angel do?
Don't do that. I'm a servant like you.
Verse 6. So Abram hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, quickly make ready 3 measures of fine meal, knead it and make cakes. I like this. The Lord has come. God, and God gonna eat. God's gonna eat. Right. And Abram ran and took a tender, Abram ran to the herd and took a tender and good calf, gave it to a young man, and he hastened to prepare it. So he took butter and milk and the calf which he had prepared and set it before them, and he stood by with them under the tree as they ate. So he went out and he got the bread. You fix the bread, go get the calf, this is good meat. And we're gonna get the milk, good drink. And he gives them the best. Okay. Up to this point, what is Abraham doing? I gotta get out of the Abram thing. He's fellowshipping, but it's with God. He's serving God, okay? I'm glad nobody in here said he was making an offering. Thank you. Because I have heard preachers say that the only way that this covenant would have worked is because of what he does here. He gave an offering.
Really?
Yes.
But the covenant was already
I know.
established.
The covenant has nothing to do with offering. But yes, I've heard it talked about.
But the covenant was already established like
Exactly.
years ago, so.
Exactly. But I've seen people come to this 18th chapter and teach that. Huh?
You just want to have a meal with God.
Yeah, but they'll teach this as, if you want God to do anything, this is what you got to do. Give him your best first. Then he'll act. All right. It was not? Okay. All right, so we'll stop in just a minute. Verse 6. So Abram hurried into the, we're down verse 9. Then they said to him, where is Sarah, your wife? So he said, here in the tent. Now, this is the Lord. Okay? Do they know Sarah's in the tent?
Yeah,
Okay, so why are they asking this question?
but they always ask.
Where's it hard?
Make sure.
Yes. Well, y'all should remember this from when we talked about Adam being lost. When God says where is some, God knows where some, what you need to start thinking of spiritually. When God asks, where is Sarah? So Abram said, she's in the tent, here in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return to you according to the time of life, and behold, Sarah your wife shall have a son. Sarah was listening in the tent door, which was behind him. So, what God is doing here when he asks this question, where is Sarah? I believe he does this for our benefit, to see something here. Because whereas Sarah is, I know God knows where Sarah is, and God knows we know where Sarah is, because he just ran into the tent and talked to Sarah. We know where Sarah is. What are you saying, God? God is saying, where is she spiritually as it pertains to me? And then he makes this decree, just like I told you. And by the way, it's really saying, just like I know you told her, I'm going to return and make this thing happen just like I said I would. Sarah's listening, and now we're going to see where Sarah is. Now, Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age, and Sarah had passed the age of childbearing. Therefore, Sarah laughed within herself. By the way, when we saw Abraham laugh, he laughed out loud.
Yeah.
Sarah's laughing where?
Inside.
Internally.
She said, I ain't laughing. He was like, yeah.
Yes, you were. Yeah. Sarah laughs within herself. That's anybody ever laugh within yourself? After I have grown old. Now, saying, this is what she said. After I have grown old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also. What's she saying?
Me and my Lord and Abraham.
I'm too old to be having
We
children.
ain't just too old to have a
They
kid.
don't even sleep together anymore.
Yes. We ain't, hey, this ain't happening. I ain't finna have this pleasure. This ain't happening. Verse 14. Is anything too hard for the Lord?
Nope. Oh, that was-
At the appointed time, I will return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Verse 14 is one of them verses, at least that first part, is something that you should put to memory. Because the first time you say to yourself, it ain't gonna happen, what you should say is anything too hard for the Lord. When you say, it ain't gonna happen. It ain't in the cards. You don't know. That's like telling God you don't know, you have no idea what's gonna happen. Now, I'm not saying crazy stuff. I'm not gonna wake up and be 25 tomorrow.
It's nothing too hard.
Now, I'm not gonna wake up and be 25 tomorrow. I'm not. But
You
what I'm
could be in
saying
your
is,
mind.
what I'm saying is, when it comes to the things that God has dictated, and then we say, yeah, I know what you're saying, but it ain't gonna happen. And I'll tell you where we do it the most, when it comes to sin. That's when we really do that. Like, well, Lord, shoot, that's just one. You know me. I can't pass that up. Is anything too hard for God?
I think calling on him to be our provider is another one of those areas.
Well, see that, but think, even on that one, when we worry about provisions, right? Notice the words I used. We worry. Is worry a sin?
Yeah.
It is. It's a sin. So, is anything too hard for God? But I need to eat, and I don't know how to eat next week.
God gonna provide.
So, has anybody in here
Yes.
ever missed a meal?
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't have it. Oh, I'm saying you did. You did? Okay. All right. Are you here?
I did not die.
You did not die, right? You got fed when it was time.
Yeah.
And it might have been on the edge of all of it. I mean, my man went to a juniper tree and ravens fed him, right? So that's, when you, like you say, the whole provision thing, my lights got cut out. Yeah, I don't know. I ain't saying everybody has, but I've been through that where the lights got cut out. The lights got cut out, and somehow or another they came back on.
That's right.
And you know what I realized? Even though they were out and I was a little inconvenienced, they are just a convenience.
And you kind of make some memories. Like, I remember sometimes when we were little, when Winter was a baby, or we walked to Dairy Queen, or just certain things that may not have been down. The lights went out. Go ahead. Yeah, you did. You walked, but the lights went out.
When the lights went out.
Yeah.
That, it's all of those things, because especially when it comes to provisions, and I don't know how this or that or the other. And it's funny to me, as Christians, we're really bad about this. But I ain't got this, I ain't got that, I ain't got the other. But we all struggle with weight because we eat too much. And we talk, I'm serious.
My dog's a
We struggle with weight. We like I've told y'all before, you walk to your closet and you be making decisions on what you're gonna wear.
Yeah.
But then you turn right around like, I don't know how I'm gonna make it. You just made a decision on what you were going to wear. And in some cases, some of you have put the clothes on and took them off and walked back and put on something else. My wife did that 3 times the other day. I was looking at her, I was like, what are you doing? I don't really like the colors. I'm like, I don't like the way this fits. And then when I told her, I said, you just rich. Just rich when you can go and change your clothes like that. Or when you go home, you can walk in one room and leave the family in another. And if they follow you, you can walk in another. Some of you, probably everybody in here, if you have a family, all of y'all can go into different rooms.
I wish they would.
But they can. And then we'll turn around and go, Lord, why won't you do anything for me? It's like, you got multiple rooms, multiple clothes, you figuring out what you want to eat. I don't know, I was thinking about going to McDonald's. Jack in the Box. Dairy Queen.
That's where the Old Testament becomes really awesome, because you think about some of the stuff they went through, and they I told my sister, I was like, we ain't got to the point where we gotta eat each other's babies and decide what baby we gonna cook.
Turn over on our side.
Right.
Don't.
We not so bad.
No, but it just reminded me when this happened, because I'm praying for God for all this stuff for me, and it was just like, I'll never be caught dead in Texas. I would never live in that place. Never, 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 never,
Welcome.
ever go there again in
I
my
said the
life.
same.
I was like, oh.
And it was something, because circumstances will put you in a place where it was like, you know what, yes, I'm going. But everything I prayed for, as soon as I got here, it was just like all of it in one shot in
I
Texas.
said I would never.
No, that doesn't surprise me.
They
Because
didn't know when they wanted to come, but it's right on time.
and it was okay to pray. Maybe, I don't want to go to Texas, or I don't want this, or I don't want that. But God is going to give you what you need, right? So, is anything too hard for God?
No.
No, it's not. All right, so he says at the appointed time, but Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh.
She lied.
Y'all see that in verse 15? But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. And he said, no, but you did laugh. And that would mess with me too, if I laughed in here.
Right.
You tell me she's afraid. She's afraid now because think about it. You laughing. How did you know? Now I'm scared, right? Verse 16. Then the men rose from there and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to see them. We're not going to go to Sodom. That's too long. All right, so we'll stop here. So basically, with this whole change thing, this is what I want you to understand. God makes a promise, right? And God is going to deliver his promise to you. Here's the timing of everything. God makes a promise to you, about you, for you. You may not be able to receive it when God makes the promise. So what God has to do is get you ready to receive
Thank you, Lord.
what he's going to give you. Because if he gives it to you before you're ready for it, you'll mess it up. So when it came to Abram and Sarai, they were not ready to receive what God had for them. What God, and I mean, for me, I look at it and say, what God is doing, other than that whole scholarly part that I gave y'all before about the whole Middle East needed to be messed up for the Antichrist to come, God had to take care of that. But what he did to Abram and Sarai, he got them at the place where there is no way whatsoever. Think about this. They're at the place where they're so far up in age that Sarah is even saying, I can't even have that pleasure now. We're beyond that. Forget the womb. We can't do the thing. We can't do the thing. You know, I'm beyond all of that. This don't make no sense. So you know what happens here? Nobody but God. Nobody but God. He even fixed Sarah's, if you think about it, he fixed Sarah's mind even in this perspective. when she gave Hagar, Hagar got pregnant, which told Sarah, if it was in the back of her mind, that perhaps maybe, just maybe, it's not me. Maybe something's wrong with him. It is me. He fixed everything. So when you are waiting on God, remember, don't let your heart get sick. That's what happens when you have to wait. But look at it from this perspective. God has got to fix you where you can receive what God is going to deliver to you. And until you're ready to receive it, you don't need it.
Amen.
All right? So we'll stop there.
Man, put his feet on the cold, like I'm cooking like a Tina.
Mine feel good in here.
I'm sorry, I'm supposed
Yeah, I did.
What'd you say, Kenzie?